Okay, I'm just going to go through, I was just looking at Arlette Van Weersel's chessgames.com website. I was reading, which month is it? It's March 2010's release of Chess by Chess and Bridge that just moved from 369 Euston Road and then moved to 44 Baker Street, and there's a funny chess cover of, must have had a crane in the background perhaps, or maybe they imposed that, but I think the crane was just there, and they've got Chess and Bridge shop just dropping in beside Silver the Mine there, so it's pretty funny. But anyway, I'm going through here, and there's a game by Arlette Van Weersel as the black pieces in the 4 nights game in round 6 of the women's tournament against Susan Lilac. And I'm going to go through that before the end of the video, but I'm just going to take a quick look. I was looking at their games here in chessgames.com. If you go down here, there's a nice wee win against Franciscus Antonius Schupers, I suppose. It's a 10 move win. It runs like this. You've got e4, e6, c4, d5, c takes d5, e takes d5, queen a4, bishop d7, queen b3, d4, bishop c4, queen e7, queen takes b7, bishop c6, queen c8 check, queen d8, bishop takes f7 check, king e7, and then queen e6 mate. That must have been a fairly short game, I don't know, I'm not sure if that one lasted 3 hours anyway, but that was a very nice win. And if you check, if you go to the website here, which is the World Chess Federation, you type her name in, you get her ratings chart here, and it shows you since October 2001 when she was rated just over 2000, and then she began to make a good steep incline in her games, which is very difficult to do because you have to win game after game after game. In January 2005 she plateaued for a while, which often happens in chess when you reach a point and then you must do some further work, and you can see now here now in 2007 now she's beginning to improve again by 100 rating points, and at that level that's a good improvement in chess. So she's on her way up. I'm going to go through a game here then which chess features, which starts with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, and then knight f6, the 4 nights game. And the game first continues with g3, preparing bishop g2, fianchetto, and then Arlette plays h5, which is fairly provocative because it's threatening h4 and it's also supporting the knight on g4. General moves in that position are bishop c5, or in the d5 with e takes d5, knight takes d5, or if black's feeling provocative again, then it's knight d4 with knight takes d4, and then e takes d4 with the original e pawn, which is now sitting on d5, looking as if it's going to be lost. So after h5, white continued with bishop g2, and then Arlette played bishop c5 next, which will be the bad bishop, and white castles. It seems as if Lilac isn't too scared about black's aggressive demonstration at the beginning, and chess go on to say, had she had been, I dare she would have preferred to play the following lines, which would have been, rather than castle, h3, which prevents knight coming down to g4, and in the event if h4 is played, then you can just play g4, which sturdies up the king side. So after the castle, there's d6 to create the pawn chain now that the bad bishop is released, d3, followed by h4. Now this is the initial thrust, which sets upon the attack. If Arlette hadn't have done that, it could have led along the lines, if she had preferred the castle for example, it could have went bishop g5, e6, d5, knight to d5, sorry, and then a5, knight f6, g takes f6, bishop h6, rook e8 and queen e2, and you can see here white has seized the initiative and has now exposed black's pawn structure around the king side, and is led to a situation now where white has the initiative and has a better position. So rather than allowing this to happen by castling, Arlette pushes her pawn h4. Lilac again plays knight to a4. Chess Magazine to go on to say that perhaps a better move in this position would have been knight h4, but if you follow this line through with bishop g4, queen d2, knight d4, h3, g5, queen g5, knight e6, knight d5, knight takes g5, bishop takes g5, rook h6, h takes d4, c6, knight f5, c takes d5, sorry, knight h6, d7, and then e takes d5, and you can see that white has more than enough compensation for the queen that has been sacked. So it's the move h4 that we really want to talk about here, which is the initial push, which is opening up after h4 takes g3 and then h takes d3. We open up this h file, and you can see how Arlette here uses this open h file to extreme success to finish off Lilac. After bishop takes g4 and knight c5, there's d takes c5. Although now the d file is open and the pawn structure has been shattered, it was black's poor bishop, and Arlette has other plans. I think that was just a temporary loss in pawn structure, and I think she felt at this point she had a strong kingside attack anyway. So let's continue with bishop e3, queen d7, bishop takes c5, long castle, which connects her two rooks with great strength, b4, and then rook h5, not only defend the e5 pawn here from the knight, but also allowing the rook to come across, and via the square e6, allowing the queen to come in, with therefore not only doubling on the h5 with the rooks, but also bringing the queen in between them. And when you have rook, queen, rook, it's very, very strong. The game continues with b5, and there's a slight shuffling here, which is just maintenance to ensure that the pending kingside attack with the tripled major pieces will continue successfully with knight to e7, bishop takes e7. Alright, so the bishop pair is perhaps lost, but after queen takes e7, queen d2, king b8, rook and a to b1, and then rook to d8. The final attempt really by white to pacify the situation is knight h4, which almost puts a blocking pieces in, but Arlette simply has g5 where knight plays f5, which in some ways allows a ninja move by black, where it seems as if she's just removing her queen from attack from the knight, which is always a nice way to create an attack, is when it seems as if you're doing one thing when really you're doing another. After knight to g7, there's the brilliant knight sack, which is knight g4, or knight takes e4, sorry. And after d takes e4, obviously there could have been there knight takes e6, but after knight takes d2, rook f1, rook takes b1, and then bishop takes e6. Black's up a whole rook, so really the knight sack had to be accepted, and after it's accepted, it's just devastating now. It's rook h1 check, bishop takes h1, queen h6. Nothing really white can do here, other than to attack the bishop, and now it's just queen takes h1 check, king f2, queen f3 check, king e1, queen e4 check, and now with the bishop on the white squares and the queen on e4, there is no escape path for the king. King must follow back now to king f2, and after rook h2, it's now king g1, and sure enough, mate on h1. that was just a nice wee demonstration. I thought it was a very clean game. I like chess games like that when there's just a simple plan that's started off from just after the opening. In fact, this was move 4 when h5 was played, which eventually culminated in a mating attack on h1. So that's the brilliant Arlette van Weersel.